Hello and welcome to another episode of the At the Show podcast. I'm your host, Tom Yumper Garcia, and we're going solo again this week, but we got an action-packed show for you this week. Coming up, I'll tell you what I watched this week, a little Spider-Man hint there, and why this movie worked for me, as well as is more than just a superhero movie, but I'll get into that with what I watched this week, as well as some stuff going down the road. We're also diving into the latest movie and television news with news and rumors, introducing what's happening at the box office, some new trailers, and what's coming next in Hollywood. Then we're going to have a Penguin Imprints little commercial, and then we'll get into the main event. Is the summer blockbuster officially back? We're going all the way back to Jaws and Star Wars, through the huge events of movies in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and into what we're seeing at the box office right now in 2026. And before we get all there, we have to look at what's headed to theaters and streaming next in our Coming Soon segment. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's get started. This is the At the Show podcast, brought to you by Sadistic Penguin Studios. Let's go straight into that first segment for what we've been watching.
That's a me! And also, what were you just watching?
Just trying to get it's too small for me. So for this week, I only went with one movie that I really want to talk about, and that is Spider-Man Brand New Day. And I'm just going to get this out there. I really love this movie. I had high expectations going in, but what surprised me was how much the movie actually felt like a Spider-Man again, meaning I was drawn back to the Sam Raimi type Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man was not just a hero in the MCU, but Peter Parker, New York, the movement, the poses, the attitude, and the weight that comes with things trying to live two lives at once. And one of the things that immediately jumped out to me was how much the movie seemed to draw from the Insomniac Spider-Man video games, Miles Morales, stuff like that. That's what really pumped me for this film. You can watch the film and see how during one of his jumps, he does the pose from the video game. Me being a video game nerd was like, holy smokes, that's from the video game. But even my son at 10 years old was telling me the same thing. And there wasn't just me seeing something that wasn't there either. Director Daniel Cretton has talked about Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 being big influences on this movie. And you can absolutely feel in the way he moves and some of the shots they chose, which are excellent. There were several moments where Spider-Man hits this pose, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, I know that pose. Again, I'm a video game nerd. But it felt reassuring when I had my 10-year-old next to me telling me, hey, that's from the game. And that really made me not feel so much like a nerd, but a cool dad, baby. Yeah, I have to get my victories when I can, guys. If you spent hours swinging around New York on the PlayStation games, some of the movement feels instantly familiar. The acrobatics, the way he launches himself, the way he lands, the little mid-air poses. It feels like somebody on the crew actually understood why controlling Spider-Man in those games felt so good. And again, this calls back to the Sam Raimi movies, as Raimi had used poses from the comic books and applied them into the Spider-Man film in 2002, which everybody called out, the big comic book fans called out when I went to go see that movie in theaters. Now, I'm not a huge comic book reader. I've never been. My son is. But I remember going to the theater at the time, and there are other people around me telling me, "Hey, that's from the comic book," and I'm like, "Oh, cool." I love the fact that they use source material while putting their own spin on things that look so good. But the reason Brand New Day worked for me goes beyond the action. The movie is more just a superhero movie, and when Marvel is at its best, that's where Marvel excels. The Marvel movies I connect with are the most. They're mostly more than just somebody shooting webs or an action hero. Throwing a shield, swinging a hammer, or flying through space. The Marvel movies I connect with work because underneath all that, there's a human story to it. With Spider-Man, the human story has always been Peter Parker. Peter can save an entire city and still have absolutely no idea how to save his own life. He can be incredibly powerful when he puts on the mask and still be completely lost when he takes it off. That's Spider-Man in a nutshell. And Brand New Day understands that. It gives us spectacle, fights, and web slinging. But underneath all that, there's loneliness, grief, relationships, responsibility, and the guy's trying to figure out who Peter Parker is supposed to be with when the world has moved on without him. That's why I think the best superhero movies transcend the genre. The powers are on the hook, the person is why you care. You see, you can see the same thing in movies like Logan, which I love, The Dark Knight, Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther, and the original Spider-Man from 2002. At their best, they aren't asking you to care about a costume. They're asking you to care about the person wearing it. All those movies have given you some emotional response to them. Logan, you felt bad for Wolverine, what he was going through, but you saw that he actually loved X-23 and basically, died with his love in his hands as he was projected in Wolverine and the Wolverine. You see Spider-Man with Uncle Ben in 2002, that emotional scene. Black Panther in Wakanda Forever. You see that emotional connection. The Dark Knight, Batman and the Joker just fed off each other great. With the losing of Rachel, that shows you that there's some emotional connection there. And that brings me to where I rank this movie, because I've been thinking about this since I walked out of the theater. Spider-Man Brand New Day is now my second favorite Spider-Man movie. Number one is still Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man, and I think the only reason it's number one is because I saw that first, and I still got a little nostalgia for it. But this one comes in at a very, very close second. Now, the Sam Raimi movie helped define what a modern superhero could be, and there's certain sincerity to Raimi's film that I still love all those years later, as I explained. But Brand New Day got me closer to the feeling than I expected. It has its own identity, and Tom Holland isn't trying to be Tobey Maguire, and that's what I love about him. This is probably the closest I felt to the Holland movies to getting the balance I love. Peter Parker first, Spider-Man second, and both sides of him actually matter. So right now, two are pretty damn clear. Number one, Sam Raimi, Spider-Man. Number two, Spider-Man Brand New Day. And honestly, the fact that I'm putting Brand New Day that high should tell you how much I enjoyed it. If you've seen it, let me know where you rank it among the Spider-Man movies, because I have a feeling people are going to have very different, lists than me. But speaking of Brand New Day, we're not done with this, though. We're going to be talking about Spider-Man a little bit later on as well, because this movie's putting up some absolutely insane box office numbers at the box office. But that's enough for what I've been watching. Let's go on and move to our news and rumors segment. If I can find the video here we go.
It's the At The Show podcast, news and rumors. Strap in as we dive into the latest movie and television news, rumors, casting buzz, trailers, and everything making waves in Hollywood. The lights are down. The curtain is up. Let's get at the show.
So you guys like my little English accent? That really wasn't me, but I decided to add a little flair to the podcast, keep it rich. But becoming serious for a moment, before we get to this week's news and rumors, I want to start on a much sadder note. Actress Hayden Panettiere has died at the age of 36 years old. Her representative confirmed the news Sunday. As of the time I'm recording this, the cause of death has not been publicly disclosed in detail, and 36 is way too young to go. For a lot of us, Hayden was one of those performers who seemed to be everywhere as we were growing up. She started out as a child actress, appearing in movies like Remember the Titans, and then became a huge part of the 2000s as Claire Bennett on Heroes, one of my favorite TV series to watch. She was also in Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. became one of the, oh, so I'm sorry. Series cheerleader said the world became one of the defining phrases on that show. I got a little mixed up with my notes here. And Hayden was right at the center of that show. Later, she gave another great performance as Juliet Barnes on Nashville, a role that earned her 2 Golden Globe nominations. And horror fans knew her as Kirby Reed in the Scream movies. She also lent her performance and voice to a game called Until Dawn. So her work was reaching not just movie fans, television fans, but also horror video game fans and horror movie fans. What makes this news especially difficult is that she was so young and spent nearly her entire career and life in front of an audience. Her representative remembered her as an incredible light and a force of nature who brought joy to those who knew her and millions who watched her on screen. So before we move on to the show, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge her career and everything she gave audiences over the years. Rest in peace, Hayden Panettiere. 36 years old and gone far, far too soon. Our thoughts are with her family, her friends, and everyone who loved her. Just horrible news to start off the news cycle week. But moving on to a little bit more, I guess, happier news or more informative news is the box office, man. The box office is booming. Holy shit, did Spider-Man make a lot of money. Spider-Man Brand New Day just pulled in around $145 million domestically in its second weekend. Think about that for a second. We're not talking about opening weekend. We're talking about the second weekend, $145 million. And globally, the movie has made around $2 billion as of this week. $2 billion. That is ridiculous. They're already talking about Tom Holland getting a huge payday. I'm guessing he had some points on the profits, which is good for him. The thing just isn't a hit. It's a monster, man. And that brings me to something we've heard constantly over the years, superhuman fatigue. Do audiences actually have superhero fatigue? Because I'm starting to think that's the wrong way to describe what's happening. Maybe audiences aren't tired of superheroes. Maybe they're just tired of superhero movies that suck ass and give them a reason not to give a shit. I mean, I felt that, and I'm pretty sure you listening to this or watching this, I felt that when you watch the superhero movie, Morbius. And Spider-Man right now might be the exception to that rule. Batman is probably in that category as well. Spider-Man is definitely in that category. There are certain characters that become bigger than whatever cinematic universe they're attached to, and people just love Spider-Man. So I don't know what you guys think. Does the success of the Brand New Day prove that superhero movies fatigue was overblown, or is it Spider-Man being simply bulletproof? And my take on superhero fatigue is basically, I've always felt that if you put a good movie out, no matter what the subject is, people are going to watch it. They might not watch it at the theater, but it'll eventually get that recognition it deserves. Like Shawshank Redemption, for example. That movie did not do well at the theaters, but once it was released in syndication, once it was released on rental, it became one of the most rented films in our history. And TBS still constantly plays that, and I still constantly watch it when it's on. You know, it's one of the greatest films ever made. And I kind of feel like that with superhero movies. You know, they don't have to be overblown Oscar winners, but they have to have a good story to make you want to watch it again. And I think that's what's missing is we sometimes put out the superhero thinking that that's going to be the selling point. Well, I think it kind of is to a point, though. You put the superhero out to draw the audience in and you keep them around for that story, wanting them to come back for another one. I think Iron Man did a really good job with it in the first one. And even though people hate Iron Man 2, I didn't really hate it. Iron Man 3 was okay. But, you know, it drew people in that first story and kept people coming back. And I think that's kind of what Spider-Man's doing right now. You know, people have been waiting for it. And the Spider-Man series under Holland, you know, the Holland as Spider-Man have been very, very good, in my opinion. Unfortunately, we'll never see the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4 because Spider-Man 3 didn't do too well. And that one was kind of a misflop and, jumbled version of what Spider-Man should be. Just too many villains, I guess, in that film. And the Sandman character was brutal. The CGI for him anyway. But, I think the fatigue is more prone to the story than it is to the actual superhero characters coming out. Because even when people were saying superhero fatigue was coming out, WandaVision came out, and that kept me around. Loki season 2 kept me around, to want to watch. I watched the Captain America series. It wasn't that great. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, that was okay. But it still kept me around. And then you have the Punisher series. So there's stuff that still can keep you in, the realm of superheroes. It's just the story that keeps you locked in, that wants you to see more of it. And I'm not going to lie, after watching this Brand New Day, it wanted me to see more of what the story is going to, go from here, how they're going to continue it. It really got me excited about future projects that we will talk about in a little bit. But that's kind of my opinion on what, the whole superhero fatigue thing is. And while Spider-Man is swinging around breaking records, there's another guy having a pretty damn good summer too, and that's Christopher Nolan. The Odyssey has now crossed roughly $1.3 billion worldwide and has become Christopher Nolan's highest grossing movie worldwide. Let me repeat that. Christopher Nolan made a movie based on an ancient Greek epic and turned it into $1 billion blockbuster. That's just insane, man. And I think we reached the point where Christopher Nolan himself is the franchise. You don't necessarily have to tell audiences what his next movie is. You just put them, from Christopher Nolan in the poster, and people are going to go ask where the tickets are to buy. That's just the way I feel. He's built that reputation with Batman. He's built it with Oppenheimer. He's built it with the franchise of, The Odyssey, just another one of his big time franchises. He just putting his name out there gets him sales. And I think that's great for him because he's a very, very talented director. There aren't really many directors left that can do that, really. Spielberg has obviously had that kind of name recognition. James Cameron has it. Quentin Tarantino has it. And now we have Christopher Nolan having it. He's created the exception that if you're going to see a Christopher Nolan movie, you should see it on the biggest screen you possibly can. And that brings us to IMAX. The Odyssey was the first feature film shot entirely with IMAX cameras, and premium large format screens were a huge part of its opening weekend business. And I gotta tell you, it looked beautiful. If you can see it in the theaters still, in IMAX, I highly recommend you do it. Nolan has spent years conditioning his audience to think of movies as a theatrical experience, and he does it great here. He doesn't want you to think, I'll catch the movie when it's streaming. He wants you to go to the closest IMAX theater. And that's kind of a good thing for movie theaters. You want people to come in, not just for the business of movie theaters, but you want them to have an experience. Movies are an experience. Think about it when you were a kid. You're not sitting on your couch watching it unless you rented it. You want to see it in the movie theater. Make people come out to the movie theater. Make people want to be there at the movie theater to experience your love and passion of filmmaking. There's not just a bunch of movie nerds like myself out there. There's people who love stories and they like watching them on the big screen. It's an experience, man. And unfortunately, it is getting expensive, but it's one of the few, joys in life that we can kind of like chill out, especially in the world we live in today, and turn our mind off to what's going on and watch what's going on film. If you're asking people to spend money, drive to the theater, buy the popcorn, and sit there for a few hours, you got to put something on there. You're not getting at home either. And I think they've done that with these two movies. And Nolan understands that better than most people. So this brings me to the bigger question here. What do you think actually gets people in the movie theaters? Because I don't simply think it's franchises, and I don't simply think it's original movies either. I kind of think it's events. Like Spider-Man feels like an event. And this Christopher Nolan movie feels like an event. a huge animated movie that families want to experience together can feel like an event. And, we're going to come back to this later tonight, but it leads me directly in to tonight's main event, which is the summer blockbuster back. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. But we got plenty of news and rumors to go through. So let's go on to the next story, which is the Paper Tiger, the trailer ticket. We got Adam Driver, Miles Teller, and Scarlett Johansson together in Paper Tiger. And those three names aren't enough to get you in, then I don't know what the hell to tell you, man. That's three pretty good names to get you into a film, especially Miles Teller and Adam Driver. Paper Tiger comes from writer-director James Gray, the filmmaker behind movies like Ad Astra, The Lost City of Z, and Armageddon Time. The movie takes place in Queens, New York in 1986. Adam Driver and Miles Teller play brothers who are involved in a questionable business opportunity connected to the Russian mafia. And as you can probably imagine, things don't go according to plan. What looks like an opportunity quickly becomes a nightmare that threatens the family and the relationship with each other. Scarlett Johansson plays Hester Pearl, and the movie reunites Johansson and Driver after Marriage Story, a film they did before. It already premiered at the 2026 Cannes Film Festival, and now we have the trailer, and that means it's time to introduce something new to the At The Show podcast. So we're going to do this thing called the trailer ticket. Is something I thought of, which is basically have different levels here. And I'm not going to play the trailer because of copyright issues, but if you have seen the trailer, let me know. But if you haven't, pause the stream right now or pause the audio and go watch it. And then I want to hear your rating because these are the ratings I have. 1, are you buying a ticket? You sold me, I'm there. 2, waiting for the reviews, you got my attention, but I'm not completely sold yet. 3, skipping it. Thanks, but I'll catch it somewhere else. What do you think? Because for me, I'm buying a ticket. Adam Driver and Miles Teller with Scarlett Johansson and this story, it makes me think of the movie The Drop, which was a movie that James Gandolfini was in, along with our I can't think of his name right now. Oh my goodness. See, this is what happens when you get old. Tom Hardy. I could see his face in my head. Just couldn't think of his name. And reminds me of that. And that movie was a really, really good film I saw in theaters. This one kind of has those vibes to me. And I think that, it's got that 80s New York setting, organized crime, and a family being torn apart in the middle of it. So that's a pretty damn good starting point for me. So yes, I will be seeing this in theater. It hits theaters November 13th, 2026. And when it gets here, you'll find out if it earns that ticket because I'll do a review of it on the show or I might do a mini video of it. But what'd you give it? Let me know in the comments. But moving on, we're going to go into some television talk. And Heated Rivalry is officially getting back on the ice. Now, season 2 is now in production with Hudson Williams returning as Shane Hollander and Connor Story returning as Ilya Roznov. And this time we're getting new faces here. We got Charles Gillespie is joining the cast as Troy Barrett, while Justice Smith will play Harris Drover. Season 2 is expected to pull primarily from the long game, continuing Shane and Ilya's relationship roughly 3 years after when we left them, incorporating new material from Role Model. So not simply repeating season 1. The relationship has progressed. The characters are older, and now you got the question of what happens when keeping the relationship secrets become increasingly difficult. Creator Jacob Tierney has indicated that season 2 is going into some deeper and darker territory as well. So that's something to look forward to. The current target for this to be released is 2027, with reporting pointing to April 2027, although an exact premiere date can be still moved. So here, rivalry fans still have a little bit of a wait for them, but production is underway, and Shane and Ilya are coming back, and apparently things are about to get even more complicated. Now, I had to put this in there because here, rivalry got so much recognition for season 1. I have watched a little bit of it, so excuse me if I pronounce Ilya's name wrong, but it's something that's different. And hey, man, I'm open to everything different in terms of watching. So I was looking forward to seeing what this is all about, and it was enjoyable from what I watched. It's a love story, but the hockey element adds to it. Check it out if you haven't before season 2 comes around in hopefully April 2027. Our next story deals with some big news in the Marvel side. Marvel finally introduced the new X-Men. Before we get to another big thing that dropped at D23, we finally found out who the new cast of X-Men are. After years of rumors, fans, casting, and people trying to figure out how Marvel was going to bring back the mutants fully into the MCU, we finally have some answers. We have Sadie Sink as Jean Grey. We found that out in Brand New Day. We have Kit Connors as Scott Summers, Cyclops. Samara Weaving is Emma Frost. I loved her in Ash vs. the Evil Dead. She played a small role in there, and she's also in Scream, which I thought was cool. Indy Neveretti, who we just did a review of an Obsession, is going to play Rogue. Maya Boyd is Oreno Monroe, or Storm. Christopher Abbott is Professor Charles Xavier. And Adam Driver is playing the villain as Mr. Sinister. And the last announcement kind of jumped out at me because Mr. Sinister is a character X-Men feels, X-Men fans have been waiting for a long time. We saw like little hints in the Wolverine movies and the X-Men movies. There was little teasers that he was coming, but there wasn't really a definite, announcement of it. Also, it's an interesting choice because Driver can be intimidating. He can be weird, intense, and completely unpredictable, which sounds like a pretty damn good Sinister to me. The only thing I like here is that Marvel isn't simply filling every role here with the biggest celebrity it can find. They're kind of adding in and mixing in some recognizable names like Driver, Sadie Sink, Samara Weaving, and Christopher Abbott mixed in with those younger and new faces. And we need to get fresh blood into the franchise. I mean, I love Patrick Stewart. I love James McAvoy. Hell, I love, our man Logan, the original Logan that was been with the series since the beginning, Hugh Jackman. But those guys and ladies are getting older. Even Halle Berry, who just turned 60. Happy birthday, Halle. They're getting older. So
I didn't get that.
Ooh,
could you try again?
My Siri went off. Look forward to seeing that with the new blood coming in. Excuse me, I just did a promotional no. Siri went off for me. But getting the new blood in is a good thing to the franchise going forward, and hopefully it is successful. James Schreier is directing after working with Marvel on Thunderbolts, which I thought was a good job. And Marvel used D23 to bring the cast out fully together in this picture and officially starting the new era of mutants. And Adam Driver actually had a video that was presented as well. Now, obviously, there's still a lot we don't know. Who else is on the team? Where are Beast, Iceman, Angel, Gambit, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine? We do know that there are rumors that this, part of the X-Men, I guess, storyline won't have Wolverine in it. That's the rumor. But we're not sure. It could be, them playing because Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds actually put out a video asking to be part of the film. So we don't know. But also, more importantly, what kind of X-Men movie is Marvel making? Because X-Men works best when they're just not superheroes. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier. They're best when they're outsiders, when they're feared, they're hated, they're family. That's the X-Men way. The best X-Men stories have always had something to say underneath costumes and powers. And that was the meaning of X-Men. Why Stan Lee, why they created them, to show racism, show differences between people. And you can still apply that to this world today, unfortunately. So for me, the casting is exciting, but the tone is going to matter too. And I think for my early verdict of this, I like what they're doing. And I hope that it's good. I really do. Because I don't want it to have Fantastic Four the second time casting, which had decent actors, especially Michael B. Jordan, and the film was a flop. So please, Marvel, keep my hopes up and keep me very, very happy with a good film and story. And then, I will be there to watch these films because, again, I am a nerd for these kind of films. Also, my son's in the age of the X-Men, so it's kind of cool to experience this stuff with him. But moving on to the big story of the week, and that is the Avengers Doomsday. The new D3 trailer is here. And you don't just have to stare at the countdown and wonder anymore. It dropped. We were hearing all these rumors of when it was going to come out, and it dropped Friday, the 14th of August. And you know what? Right away, Marvel's still playing this, carefully. But we get more Doom in this trailer. But do we see, a clear shot of RDJ? No, we don't not. And there's rumors that Cillian Murphy can possibly do another version of Doom, which I'm really excited. So I really like the fact they're still keeping us in the dark. Because we know that it's RDJ under the mask. But there are also different versions of Doom. And I love that they're keeping it open. Because Marvel does not need to keep selling us on the casting. What I want them to sell us on is who this version of Victor Von Doom actually is. And the big tease here is that Doom appears to have a tragic backstory, with the footage suggesting he went too far after losing his wife and child. That immediately reminded me more of an interesting story than I just thought of a superhero movie. So it gives more of that underlining basis to it that makes me want to go see the film. And that's the kind of villain I kind of want in the new Avengers movies. Give me somebody terrifying, but also give me enough of the point of view I can understand how that person got there. Because I think that's what works the best for villains. They're not a person you would root for, but you can understand why they're that way. Because the best villains, they just don't wake up in the morning and thinking, oh, today I'm going to be a villain. No. There's something that makes them a villain. They think they are one person willing to do what has to be done. Thanos is a perfect example of that. And with Doom, that can get dangerous very, very quickly. The other thing I like is that Marvel is still keeping the mask and Doom himself as the focus. That would be easily, that could have easily become, a trailer built around, look, everybody's Tony Stark is back. But no, they're keeping it under the mask. And Doom is the focus. But I love the fact that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Victor Von Doom. If this works, I want to stop thinking about Tony Stark for 5 minutes into the movie and start believing the guy's Doom. Because he built that whole reputation as Stark, and now he's transitioning to Doom. I want to see how he plays it off. Now, he is a phenomenal actor. You can't deny that. Whether you like him or hate him, he's a phenomenal actor. The man who won the Oscars. Watch Chaplin if you don't believe me that Robert Downey Jr. is a good actor. He is just phenomenal. So I want to see how he does it. And remember what I said earlier about the movie having such a ridiculous number of characters, like Spider-Man 3? This one has it a lot as well. You got the Avengers, you got Steve Rogers, you got Thor, the Fantastic Four, the new Avengers, the X-Men, multiple universes colliding. So the spectacle is going to be there. The question is whether there is a real character story underneath it. And we're hoping that Kevin Feige has done that. If this personal tragedy of Doom is connected to why these universes are colliding, that would be awesome. Or why he believes they need to be controlled or changed or destroyed, than selling the multiverse stuff has an emotional center to it, something more meaningful. And I think we kind of were getting into the multiverse stuff a little bit too much, but now this would give it a little bit extra layer to kind of bring us back up to speed. Why the multiverse stuff matters, because I've heard some people complain about it. But that was the speculation on my part, how the multiverse is going to play into it, but hopefully it does. But more Doom, more story, and more questions on the trailer. And to be honest with you, I love it. So I got my ticket for that one. So if we did the trailer ticket, I'm buying a ticket for this one. Let me know what you think about it, if you're going to buy it. Avengers Doomsday drops December 18th, 2026. And now that the D3 trailer is officially here, the hype just went up to another level. Let me know if you're going to go see it. Let me know how you rank it on the meter in the comments, or let me know on the Twitters. But right now, we're going to take a little quick word from Penguin Imprints, and then we're going to get into tonight's main event.
This episode is brought to you by Penguin Imprints. Looking for custom shirts, tumblers, engraved gifts, stickers, coasters, promotional items, or something made just for you? Penguin Imprints creates personalized products for gifts, businesses, teams, events, and everyday fans. Have an idea? We can help bring it to life. Shop now or request a custom order at penguinimprints.com. Penguin Imprints. Custom prints made to last.
And now it's time for tonight's main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. And now, it's time!
And for this week, I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about while watching these box office numbers and reading about them and reading all these articles. There was a time when summer meant blockbuster movies. You knew they were coming, huge crowds, packed theaters, lines outside, movies that just weren't successful. They became part of culture. Jaws, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jurassic Park, Independence Day, The Dark Knight, Avengers. There was always that movie where it felt like everybody saw it. And if you didn't see it, you had to see it. Then things changed. Streaming exploded. COVID shut theaters down. The theatrical windows got shorter. Budgets got completely out of control. We got sequel after sequel, reboot after reboot, cinematic universe after cinematic universe. And eventually people started asking whether the theatrical experience itself was dying, me being one of them. And now look what's happening. We've got Spider-Man pulling ridiculous numbers. Christopher Nolan turned The Odyssey into a $1 billion movie. For most of us, we remember The Odyssey from a television film with Armand Assad, which was a good film, but it was a series that we watched on TV on ABC. I remember watching as a kid. Now we got a $1 billion film out there that is excellent. So maybe movie theaters aren't dying yet, after all. Maybe we're asking, the wrong question. But tonight I want to ask, is the summer blockbuster back? And to answer that, we have to go back to the movie that changed the summer forever. And that is 1975's Jaws. Steven Spielberg is only in his 20s when he directs a movie about a shark terrorizing a small beach town. And that movie, of course, is Jaws. Today, the word blockbuster is thrown around constantly, but Jaws helped redefine what a blockbuster actually could be. It wasn't just a successful movie. It became a cultural phenomenon. During its original release, Jaws made around $260 million. And that's an enormous amount of money in 1975. People were talking about it. People were terrified by it. There were even reports of beach attendants being affected because this damn movie had so many people thinking twice about going into the water. But here's what matters for our conversation. Hollywood learned something from Jaws. Because before, summer was considered a dead zone. People were traveling. People were not really going to the movies as much. It was considered, summer was a dead zone in the film eyes of production companies. Jaws proved summer wasn't that. Summer wasn't a dead zone. You could put a huge crowd-pleasing movie into theaters during the summer and turn it into an event. And there was something else Jaws helped prove. If you market the hell out of a movie, opened it wide, and gave audiences something they felt they need to experience immediately, you could create national conversation around the film. People weren't just casually discovering Jaws a month later. They were hearing about it everywhere. They wanted to know what everybody was talking about. They wanted to get in on that FOMO. And the sense of urgency, the feeling of I need to see the film, because incredibly important to the Blockbuster formula. Then, 2 years later, Star Wars happens. And now the entire game changes. Because Star Wars wasn't merely something you watched. People wanted to watch it again. They wanted the toys. They wanted the characters. They wanted that universe. And now Hollywood isn't just only looking at the box office. They're looking at merchandising, sequels, characters, world building, all the things that eventually become normal in modern Hollywood. So within basically 2 summers, you got Jaws and Star Wars help establishing the blueprint Hollywood would chase for decades. Give people something they feel like they have to experience in a theater. And that's really the key phrase for the whole discussion. Have to experience. Not, I'll catch it eventually. Or, nah, I'll wait until it's streaming. You wanted to be there, man. You wanted to see it before everybody spoiled it. You wanted to understand what everybody was talking about. And Hollywood, once again, figured that out. Summer movie season was never going to be the same after these 2 films, because now the question wasn't whether people would go to the movies during the summer. The question was, and became, what's going to be this movie of the summer? We still talk about it today. And once we move into the 1980s, Hollywood starts answering that question over and over again. To go back to these 2 films before we get into the 80s, I remember the first time I saw Star Wars. Now, I was, of course, too young to see Star Wars in theater for the first time when it came out, but they did release a special edition of Star Wars with added footage in the 90s. And they actually had the films shown in small theaters to see the new extra FX added to them. I saw all 3 of them at Harlem Corners, if you guys know what I'm talking about, a small movie theater in the Chicagoland area. And I fell in love with Star Wars then. I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd into it, but just the story wrapped me up in sci-fi. I love everything about it. And I do follow them, closely enough to where I know the characters, not the lore as deeply as some, but everything that has been featured on the film I have watched, including the series. And, that kind of puts me to getting that FOMO, like, oh man, I had to see everything else about it, which I felt. And in terms of Jaws, I saw Jaws, on the VHS. Again, came out before I was born, 10 years before I was born. But it scared the shit out of me in terms of going into the water as a kid. You're like, oh, sharks, sharks became the cool thing. I mean, Shark Week, man. Would there be a Shark Week without Jaws? Think about it. Would there really be? Sharks are cool. The Great White is awesome. The Megalodon has had movies, but the damn Megalodon with Jason Statham. Would those be possible without Jaws? No, they wouldn't. these two movies had such a big, long-lasting impact, just not on horror, on sci-fi, but on the movie industry as a whole. It's up to you to believe it was a good thing or a bad thing. Personally, I think it was a good thing at first. But moving into the 1980s, Hollywood realizes we can keep this up, man. Raiders of the Lost Ark, you got Back to the Future, Top Gun, Batman. Now summer isn't simply a place to dump movies. Summer is becoming prime real estate. And then we hit the 90s. And the 90s is probably where my nostalgia kicks in the most into overdrive, because you got Terminator 2, you got Jurassic Park, The Lion King, Independence Day, Men in Black, The Sixth Sense, you got Home Alone 2, Pulp Fiction, Fight Club, Titanic, Silence of the Lambs, Scream, Romeo and Juliet. These films, there was always something different about these movies. And I'm not saying every one of them is perfect. I'm talking about the experience. You'll see the trailer on TV. You see the commercials on TV. You see the poster at the theater or at the mall. And people at work or school were talking about it. I know it was at my school. And if you hadn't seen the big movie yet of the summer, you felt like you were missing out on something. And I definitely felt that with Jurassic Park. And that's what I mean when I say event movie. So Jurassic Park, when I heard about it, I remember going with my brother and my dad. I begged my dad to take us because of the hype that I've heard at school. People were talking about the dinosaurs. Me being a kid at the time was in love with dinosaurs. My brother was starting to get into dinosaurs. It was this experience that I wanted to see. And then people were like, oh, the Tyrannosaurus Rex attacks. And I was like, holy shit, you gotta see this. And when I saw it, it was phenomenal. I still think the movie is phenomenal. One of my favorite, movies to see. I can't wait to show it to my son. Which is, he's been asking about it, so we might be seeing it soon together. Also, the great, effects that were used, not the CGI effects, special effects, but the practical effects of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, I thought was done great. Just a film that I had really big FOMO as a kid, and now, it's considered like a classic. That's just what the feeling you want with these summer blockbusters. Then we're moving on. We hit the 2000s, man, the 2000s. And this is where franchises start taking over. The blockbuster isn't disappearing. It's becoming a franchise machine, man. You got Spider-Man, Shrek, Pirates of the Caribbean, Transformers. You got X-Men. You got Jurassic Park becoming a franchise. You got Avatar, Mission Impossible. It's becoming ridiculous. Even Twilight comes out. And something the question at this time isn't, did the movie make money? It's, can we make 5 of these on top of the original? Then the Marvel idea kind of takes, that idea and perfects it with the intertwining universes. By the 2010s, the blockbuster isn't simply a sequel anymore. It's an interconnected universe. The Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Jurassic World, and eventually Avengers Endgame. For a while, Marvel made going to the movies feel like watching a season of television. You had to see a new movie because something in that movie was going to matter in the next movie. Post-credit scenes. Post-credit scenes were very rare. I can remember the first post-credit scene I saw, and that was Godzilla, the 1998 film with the egg that led to nowhere. That was like a post-credit scene I saw, and it was something that wasn't common. Marvel made it common. Now, even at horror movies, we see if there's a post-credit scene. And the original Evil Dead remake that was released in the 2010s, Ash is a damn post-credit scene just to say groovy, which I thought was pretty cool. But those movies are changing what we're expecting. You had to see the new movie before something, and the movie was going to matter in the next movie. And at that time it worked until suddenly it didn't work quite as well. So, hey, what happened? If you've seen The Mighty Wind, you know what I'm talking about here. Did people simply stop liking movies? I don't think it was that. Did everybody suddenly decide they hated superheroes? Well, I don't think it was that either, as I explained earlier. I think everything just kind of happened all at once. Streaming made movies at home ridiculously easy. Then COVID happened. And for a period of time, theaters, were shut down. Studios started shortening theatrical windows. Audiences learned, oh, wait, I'll probably be able to watch this thing at home pretty soon anyway. And meanwhile, movie budgets were just becoming ridiculously enormous for some reason. We started getting more sequels, more cinematic universes, more movies that felt like homework because you need to watch the other 6 before seeing the next one. And that's kind of like draining. And eventually, like me, some audiences, well, actually, most audiences became selective, incredibly more selective. So here's the question I keep coming back to. Did audience stop loving movies, or did Hollywood stop giving audiences enough reasons to leave the house? Because I think there's a huge difference between the two. And I don't think it was audiences stop loving movies, because I still watch movies at my house even when they've been out. Even if I can't see the ones in theater, which I hope so, I still watch them because I love film. And there's a lot of people who like certain films. I just think Hollywood was giving people shit and they didn't want to see it. You have to give that incentive to want to put you in the theater. You got make it an event like we had heard earlier. Make those people have FOMO. The Odyssey gave me FOMO. People were talking about the Odyssey, how great it is on IMAX. And I'll be honest, I love Jason the Argonauts. I love Clash of the Titans. I don't like the remakes of Clash of the Titans, but it's not really particularly my first film to want to go see it in theaters. Of course, Nolan being attached to it kind of amped it up a little bit for me, but I was a little iffy about going to see the Odyssey until one of my friends told me they saw it and they thought it was phenomenal. And that person went at like 3 a.m. to see it in the theaters because it was sold out. So they sat in the theater for 2.5 hours and then came to work and told me how great the movie was. Dead tired, but they said it was totally worth it. That gave me that FOMO. And that's the two differences I think that are missing is they're not people, audiences are not feeling they stopped loving movies. They're just not interested in bullshit that you're giving them. The the average moviegoer has, their selection has gone up. What they want to see has gone up. You can use the old formula, but you have to still give them stuff that excites them. And I think they just weren't doing that here. But something interesting happened in 2022, and that was Top Gun Maverick, a sequel to the 1986 film. On paper, you could have looked at it and said, really? We're bringing back Top Gun. Hell, I said that. But audiences basically said, hell yes, we are. Maverick opened Memorial Day weekend with a roughly $160 million across the 4-day weekend. But more importantly, it stuck around. People told other people, you've got to see it in theater. And that was a magic, phrase. Hell, we had a Top Gun Maverick screening of our own for the At the Show, where we invited people out to come watch the movie on us. We rented a theater out. That was the first event we had as the At the Show podcast. You were hearing people say, again, you guys see it in theater, right? We didn't hear them say, this is pretty good. Watch it eventually. No, you have to see it in theater. And we saw it in theater and it was phenomenal. That's the summer blockbuster. Then in 2023, man, this one's a strange one because it gave us one of the strangest and coolest movie phenomena I have ever seen in my life. Barbenheimer. Barbie and Oppenheimer. 2 movies that could not have been any more different. And instead of audiences choosing one, they turned both into an event. Yeah, people dressed up, people did double features. Memes were everywhere. Social media exploded. And suddenly going to the movies felt fun again. Think about what this tells us. One was based on Barbie. The other was a 3-hour Christopher Nolan drama about the father of the atomic fucking bomb. There's no algo that says those two movies should become a combined cultural phenomenon. People made them an event. And that's what I think Hollywood should have realized. Audiences didn't abandon theaters. They were waiting for something worth showing up for. Which brings us to 2026. Spider-Man Brand New Day, roughly $2 billion as of this week. Odyssey, roughly $1.3 billion. So what do these movies tell us? Because Spider-Man and the Odyssey are very different films. One gives audiences one of the most recognizable characters on Earth. The other gives Christopher Nolan's adopting ancient Greek literature. Yet both became events. And I think that's the answer. People wanting something they can't replicate at home. Maybe it's a spectacle. Maybe it's nostalgia. Maybe it's filmmaker they trust that made it. Maybe it's the character they love. Maybe it's something everybody is talking about and you don't want to be the only person who hasn't seen it. The FOMO. For whatever reason it is, there has to be a reason to go. Not 6 weeks from now. Not when it streams. Now. And I think Hollywood spent several years forgetting that. So, coming to my verdict here on this little main event rant. Is the Blockbuster back for summer? My answer is yeah. But I don't think it's exactly the same Blockbuster we grew up with. The Blockbuster has evolved. Jaws proved that summer could become an event. Star Wars showed how enormous the event could become. The 80s and 90s made summer movie season part of the culture. The 2000s turned those movies into franchises. Marvel turned franchises into universes. Streaming changed our lives and viewing habits. COVID changed theaters. And now audiences have changed the rules again. If you're going to ask people to leave their home and spend money at a movie theater, give them a worthy experience of it on the big screen. Because when Hollywood does that, people still show up. Maverick proved it, Barbie and Oppenheimer proved it, and now Spider-Man and Christopher Nolan are proving it again. The summer blockbuster isn't dead. If anything, the audience just raised the price of admission. You don't automatically get our attention anymore. You got to earn it. And with money being so tight, it better be damn good. And when you do, when you earn that attention, we'll be there, popcorn in hand, ready for lights to go down. And that brings me to the question of the week. In your opinion, what is the greatest summer blockbuster of all time? You have tons of choices, man. You got Jaws, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Independence Day, The Dark Knight, The Avengers, or is it something completely different? Drop yours in the comments, and I'll pick some of my favorite answers and read them on the next episode. And with that, my friends, the main event is officially closing the books. But we're not done yet because we're going to be heading into our next segment of Coming Soon to tell you about what's coming out in the world of television and movies.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
So for the first story we're going to have for Coming Soon, we don't really have to wait that long. This past Sunday, August 16th, Lanterns dropped on HBO Max. And this is a new DC series starring Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan and Aaron Pierre as Jon Stewart. And what I like about the idea behind this show is that it doesn't sound like your typical superhero series. Hal and Jon are basically two intergalactic cops investigating a murder in the American heartland. And that investigation apparently leads them into something much bigger. So instead of just, here are the Green Lanterns, here are some aliens, here are a bunch of laser fights, it sounds like we're getting a mystery and crime story that happens to feature Green Lanterns. And after what I said earlier about superhero stories working best when they have more than just superhero stories. This has my attention. I'm absolutely going to check this out. I haven't been able to watch it due to being busy, but I'm going to check this out as soon as possible. And the fact that it's on HBO makes me want to watch it more because I really enjoyed the Watchmen series. I wish the HBO, if they're not going to make another Keanu Reeves Constantine series, bring it to HBO where it can get its full love and support for it. I would love it to be on HBO to do something with like that with it. I just think they would do a great job. And I'm hoping Lanterns is totally worth checking out. The next thing coming out is already here as well, and that is Reacher Season 4. You know, it's already on Prime Video. The first 3 episodes dropped on August 12th, with new episodes arriving weekly through September 16th. That means episode 4 will arrive on August 19th, which is tomorrow. And episode 5 follows that on the 26th. Jack Reacher's back, man. Alan Rickson returns as Reacher, and the season is based on Lee Child's novel Gone Tomorrow. This time, everything starts with what should be an ordinary subway ride. A chance encounter with a distraught stranger goes horribly wrong, and Reacher gets pulled into a complex, deadly game involving some very powerful people, which is really all Reacher needs. Wrong place, wrong time, somebody doing something they probably shouldn't be doing, and eventually Reacher deciding, well, I guess I'm involved now. So season 4 is about 8 episodes total, and we got a largely new supporting cast around Reacher, including Sadell Noel, Chris Marquette, Agnes Moe, Anagan, Kevin Wiseman, Mark Blucas, Kevin Corrigan, and Kathleen Robertson. And honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I love the first 3 Reacher seasons. Me and my wife watched them, and I'm looking forward to seeing this one as well. Rickson is actually really, really good as Reacher, and he's plays what Reacher should be, a big buff guy. Tom Cruise was great as Reacher as well, but you know, Richson, if that's how you say his last name. I'm horrible at pronouncing guy names, guys. I'm sorry, but don't be mad at me.
I'm not mad!
But you know, he does a great job in the character role, and I think he's kind of found this calling as a action hero. And the story is also pulled from books, but I think they do a great job of adding them into a nice series here. So I'll definitely be watching. Moving on, we have August 21st, Insidious Out of the Further comes out. Horror fans get something new. And the big news is that Lynn Shay is back as Elise Rayner. Jacob Chase, who directed Come Play, directs and wrote the screenplay for this film. And this time the story follows Hema, a young mother who discovers that she can travel into the further, or even worse, bring things from there back into our world. I always thought Elise was one of the strongest characters in the entire Insidious franchise. So bringing back Lynn Shay immediately gives me a reason to pay attention. At this point, Insidious has been around long enough that you pretty much know whether the franchise works for you. But if they can find another reason, creepy reason that is, to take us back into the further, I'm willing to go, man. I'll check it out. On August 21st, also, we have Mutiny with our guy Jason Strahan doing Jason Strahan things. It comes out, again, the 21st of August. He plays a guy named Cole Reed, a man on a one-man crusade to avenge his boss's death, which sounds exactly like a kind of movie where everybody makes the terrible mistake of pissing off Jason Statham and then spends the rest of the movie learning why they pissed him off and why it was a bad idea. Sometimes, man, I just need that from a action movie. Even though Jason Statham has kind of like been in, I guess, stereotypical action movie guy now, I still love it. I'm sorry. I'll probably watch this. If you guys see Mutiny, let me know what you think of it. On August 27th, we have The Undeclared War Season 2 on Peacock. It's like cyber thrillers that could be worth checking out. The series follows a Britain, GCHQ, as its cybersecurity team deals with the fallout from a devastating Russian cyber attack. And season 2 adds another problem. There may be a mole inside the organization. Cyber warfare, espionage, paranoia, and somebody on the inside working against you. That's a pretty good recipe for a thriller. Me being a cybersecurity graduate and a computer nerd, this is right up my alley. But stuff like this is interesting, so check it out if you're interested. Comes out the 27th on Peacock. And then August 28th is a big movie weekend. And there's a lot happening. We have Coyote versus Acme. You know, honestly, the fact that I'm even able to say that this movie is coming to theaters is kind of incredible. Warner Brothers finished the movie and decided not to release it, intending to use it as a tax write-off. Remember what they did with Batgirl, that is. People lost their minds, man. And the filmmakers fought for it. Fans fought for it. And eventually, Ketchup Entertainment acquired the movie. Ketchup Entertainment cracks me up with the name. And now Coyote versus Acme is finally hitting theaters August 28th. The premise is brilliant, though. After years of Acme products blowing up in his face, crushing him, and generally ruining his life, he decides to sue Acme. That's Wile E. Coyote, it is. Will Forte plays a lawyer representing him, while John Cena, if you can see him, plays Acme's attorney. And I almost want this movie to succeed simply because of what happened to it, just to piss off Warner Brothers. Hollywood tried burying this thing, and the people made it, and the people who made it and the people who wanted to see it refused to let it happen, man. Now, audience, decide if this is going to be worth it. So we'll see. Also, we got The Dog Stars, which is coming out on the 28th. This one stars Jacob Elordi. I'm sorry if I said the name correctly. And Josh Brolin, along with Margaret Qualley, Guy Pearce, Benedict Wong, or Wong from Doctor Strange, and Allison Janney. It's based on Peter Heller's best-selling novel and takes place in the brutal post-apocalyptic world. Elordi plays Hig, a young pilot who was built an isolated life with a military survivalist named Bagley, who is played by Brolin. Then Hig hears a mysterious radio transmission and sets onto the unknown, looking for hope and the possibility that he may not be alone, or they might not be alone. Ridley Scott doing a post-apocalyptic survival movie. Yeah, I'm kind of got my attention, so I might check this one out as well. You have The Whisper Man. The Whisper Man coming out on Netflix. This is based on Alex North's best-selling novel. It has pretty ridiculous cast: Robert De Niro, Adam Scott, Michelle Monaghan. The story follows a widow crime writer whose 8-year-old son is abducted. He turns to his estranged father, a retired police detective, and they discover a connection to decades-old case involving a convicted serial killer known as the Whisper Man. Except the man who was convicted is still in prison. So who the hell is taking all these kids? It sounds creepy as hell. And when De Niro, Adam Scott, and Michelle Monaghan, that's going on my list. I'm a huge true crime, so I am going to really, really, really look forward to seeing that. For my most anticipated, I'm gonna have to go with Reacher for this bunch because it already started this week. I don't care. I know it's technically, but we're only 3 episodes in. We've got new episodes coming over the next 2 weeks, and this is a show I am most looking forward to sitting down and watching because, like I said, it's a spectacle with my wife. You also don't need 20 years of continuity. You don't need a multiverse chart or chats with anybody. You don't need to watch 4 other television shows before you start the new season. You need Reacher. You need a mystery. You need some bad people who absolutely no idea they're picking a fight with the wrong guy. And then you need Alan Richardson do the rest. That's it. That's the formula. And somehow it works. So my most anticipated pick for the next 2 weeks is Reacher Season 4. New episodes hit Prime every Wednesday. And I'm absolutely along for the ride. So with that, that's coming soon. And in closing, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the At the Show podcast. I want to thank everybody who hung out with me for this solo version of the show. Going solo is a little different for me because I constantly fight with myself. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, but just figuring out what version of the At the Show, if I do it solo or with Tony, what the solo version is going to become, So I genuinely want your feedback. Did you like this version better? What worked? What didn't work? Are there segments you want to hear more of? Do you like what we watched? News and rumors, the main event, my verdict, and coming soon versions that I changed? Let me know in the comments because I want you guys to be involved as the show continues to evolve. Don't forget tonight's question. What is the greatest summer blockbuster of all time? Drop your answers below. Drop them at the tweets. And while you're down there, we're getting close to 1,000 subscribers on the Statistic Penguins YouTube channel. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and help us push the crazy little penguin over 1,000 subs. It costs you nothing. It helps the channel tremendously. And you know where the next episodes will be if you subscribe. And speaking of a new episode, the At the Show podcast will be back in 2 weeks. More movies, more television, more news and rumors, more of me probably yelling about something Hollywood has done, and a main event. Until then, I'm your host, Tom Yumper Garcia. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Go see something good out there, man. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?